Thank you so much for tuning in to Solo PR Pro. If you like this content, please remember to like and subscribe. Hi, this is Karen Swem from Solo PR Pro on a cold, rainy Saturday afternoon. I wanted to talk to you about some of the practical resources that you should consider for your business so that you have some things to put in your toolkit. Again, starting out, you really need minimal things. And so the goal is not to go out and buy a lot of tools and subscriptions and spend a lot of money, but it is good to have a list of things that you'll need in your business as you go on so that as you make money, you can invest in services. But there may be a couple things that you're going to want as you get started on day one. So number one, you need a way for clients to contact you. So that means phone and email. A lot of people just use their cell phone, and there's nothing wrong with that. You can continue to use your cell phone number, but think through, is your cell phone number something that you want to put everywhere and to make publicly available? Do you want everyone to have that number? Do you want to have a separation between work and personal? There are a couple of options. You can keep the cell phone and you can use a service like Flip, F-L-Y-P, that allows you to add a second number for a very minimal fee to your existing cell phone. So really what it is, it's a number that rings through to your regular cell phone number. So it doesn't require you setting up a different provider or anything like that. It's just a small fee that you pay to get a second phone number that you can then publish that number, and then that number will still ring to your cell phone. It's kind of cool, actually. And it's a really inexpensive way. It's almost like adding a second line to your existing cell phone provider without adding a whole bunch of extra costs or a second device. So with that second phone number, that allows you to keep one phone. It allows you to recognize the calls that are coming through for business and for personal. And then if you need to disconnect from your business, so if you set business hours and you don't want to answer calls after hour on the weekends, it really very easily allows you to manage that. You can also get a cloud phone server, something like Google Voice. I know a lot of people use that and have had great success with it. I'm not a Google Voice user, so I can't really speak to that particular service, but it definitely is an option. I use a service called RingCentral, and I've used it for a number of years, actually since the start of my business. So I'm probably on some crazy legacy plan that's super cheap, but I can tell you some of the benefits. With RingCentral, it allows you to set up phone numbers to it to ring to. So you can have it ring to a landline, you can have it ring to your cell phone, you can have it ring multiple numbers at once. But the number that you give clients is a business number. So you can choose your area code, you can have an 800 number in addition to that, or a toll-free number. And all of your phone numbers accept both voice calls and fax calls. And believe it or not, occasionally you still get a fax. But the faxes also can come to email, and you can send faxes by email. I have found that so helpful over the years, even as early as 2009, or as recent as 2019. I needed to send a fax. Sometimes you need to send a fax to a government agency because that's just the way to do it, and it's so helpful to just be able to do that through email. You'll also need an email address. Now, starting out, if you want to start out with like a free Gmail account or something, there's nothing wrong with that. No one is going to look at you differently. But at some point, you'll want to invest in a business email address. It's sort of nice to start out with one so that you don't have to swap out things later, and then you don't have to worry about, if for the first 6 months you use free and then you switch over to a business email, having to manage those multiple accounts or look for somebody that maybe has that old email address and is trying to contact you for a project or wanting to refer you. So I kind of like starting out with that initially. So there are a couple things that you can do. You can, if you're going to use, a company name or your name, try to buy the domain, and you don't have to host it. So you don't have to have your website yet, but you can get the domain. use GoDaddy. They're pretty easy. Their customer service is fantastic, and you can get add-on services if you need to. Get your domain name, and then you can go ahead and host your business email either through them if you choose, or there's lots of other email services, or you can use G Suite, which is Google's product. I really like G Suite. I've had great success with them personally, and I know a lot of other people do. Or you can have your email and use Outlook. There are a lot of people that really like Outlook. Maybe it's what you're using at work, it's what you're comfortable with. But I would say start with the email address that you're going to use so that you don't have to transition people over later, if you can. If not, again, put it on a list, make sure, decide on a service, do a little research on what works for you. And as you begin to make money, you can then invest in your business. For public relations people, media relations databases are one of the larger expenses that you may have if you need that. If you don't do media relations at all, and some don't, you don't have to, then you won't need this service. Do not, however, buy a media database out of the gate. You want to wait until you actually need it because there's so many different options for tapping into a service. You could pay someone to build a media database for you. Oftentimes that's a lot cheaper, especially if you don't have an ongoing need. Like I use a media database a couple of times a year. It's not a daily thing for me, and so it wouldn't make sense to have a subscription all on my own and pay for that big expense because I don't really need it that often. There are lots of other solos out there that are in your position, and so there's lots of workarounds. However, if you know that you are going to need a media database, you have a couple of ways to begin to plan that expense. I like to go ahead and plan out my overhead expenses and make sure that my bill rates are going to cover my overhead. That way, I'm not having to worry about the expense. I know that with each client, I've already covered that because it's, incorporated into the rate that I charge. Some other solos and agencies as well add a line item for tools. So they may charge a minimal fee for the tools that they use, and you will have a couple of tools and subscriptions related to client expenses, so it's not a bad idea. You just want to make sure that you're recouping your investment. So they may charge $150 or $200 above their rate to cover that charge. So your choice. There's no right or wrong way, but you do have some options, and it's really your preference of how you prefer to do business. Things like reporting tools and monitoring tools and social media management are also things that you can consider. Think about the services that you'll offer and what you're going to need. But again, don't go and buy all of these things at one time. If you're going to offer social media management, you're going to want a social media management tool because you're going to want to be able to pull reports and report back to clients. I can tell you from personal experience, it's far cheaper to invest in a social media platform that gives you reports than to try to build them all on your own. It takes a lot of time to get the information that's already offered. And if you sort of do the math with the number of hours that it would take you to do a report every month and then what you spend on a social media tool, you'll come out a lot cheaper just buying the tool and using the reports. So there's lots of options for that as well. There's, Buffer and Hootsuite and Sprout Social, and you may already be using a tool in your corporate job if you're still employed, and so you may like that tool. Price that out and see how that will work on a solo budget. Some of the tools that larger companies use, they offer tons of features that you may not even need in your own business, and they can be pretty expensive too. So you want to watch that. And if you're not sure, talk to other solos and ask about the tools that they use and get some honest feedback. So those are just a couple of practical things that you'll need. other than that, it's really, really simple. And again, you don't have to spend a ton of money in order to be in business for yourself when you offer a service. That's kind of the beauty of this kind of business. You don't need a retail location. You don't need to buy product. And you can invest in your business and you can add those expenses as you go on. But starting out, the most important job, whether you have free email or use your cell phone, is to get those clients. Because without clients, then none of this matters. But I know that you can do it, and we are here to support you. Please remember to check out our website, soloprpro.com, for resources, information, and tips. You can also sign up for our free newsletter. It comes out bi-monthly, and we provide you with tips and tools and news items to watch. And join Solo PR Pro for even more support and resources, templates, tools, and checklists that are designed exactly for the Solo PR Pro. So we have things that'll save you time, save you money, and teach you to make money as well. Have a great weekend.